Brexit is now my favourite TV drama, almost as good as Game of Thrones at its finest, in that you genuinely have no idea what's going to happen next. I mean, your favourite characters can just go poof in an instant, just like that. I mean, it all started simple enough, a few years ago with a simple, innocent vote. Stay or go. What could possibly go wrong with this? Followed by 3 years of debating about what going actually meant. So the government had 2 years to negotiate what they decided that leaving meant. And Theresa May decided, on behalf of the government, elected by the people, what it meant. And they negotiated the deal with the EU, which was then subjected to one of the most devastating defeats in governmental history. Now, this is hardly surprising when you think about it. I mean, let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that Parliament is representative of the people. Like I was saying, maybe not such a bad assumption, given that these were the politicians elected by the people after the referendum, right? These were the politicians the people selected to represent them in the Brexit stuff. So, about half of those wanted to stay, and half of them wanted to leave. Let's just say ballpark numbers. The problem is that of those who want to leave, about half want a hard Brexit and half want a soft Brexit. That is, you have about 25% support for a hard Brexit and similarly for a soft Brexit. So no matter which one of those you put forward, you're going to get pummeled. I mean, it's not that much like rocket science. You know that it only just scraped through in the referendum. Of course, if you subdivide that in any way whatsoever, you're going to end up with a minority. Incidentally, this is why Farage was so against actually defining what Brexit was before the referendum, because once you define it, no matter how you define it, you immediately drop from maybe being in a chance of winning a referendum to having zero chance of winning a referendum. With, if he pitched that we're going to go for a hard Brexit before the referendum, maybe 25% support. Likewise, if he pitched that we would just sort of have a softish type Brexit, similarly so. So, I mean, but that's not what happened. 50% voted to leave. But the problem is, half of those are soft Brexitees and half of them hard, and they fight like cats in a bag. Cool. So in the game of Brexit, that was our second Prime Minister to get it in the neck. Now we've lost both Cameron and Theresa May. Both kind of villains. But anyway, now enter the fray. The comedian, the clown, the joker, Johnny Boy. Boris Johnson, decides that he's going to throw all of the negotiations in the bin and he's going to start again from scratch. Not really quite in the spirit of the law, in that the government had already spent 2 years negotiating. Yeah, the government that was selected by the people had already spent 2 years negotiating this deal, and he was just going to sort of ignore all of that and wanted to just start again, Anyway, the problem was that playing hardball is okay if you got a position from which you can maybe bluff something or something. It's not going to happen when you're dealing with competent negotiators like this anyway. But the thing is that even if they wanted to, his position was pathetically weak in that when he became Prime Minister, he had a majority of 1. Within hours of him stepping in onto the floor of Parliament, he didn't even have that. Yes, within hours of setting foot in Parliament, Boris Johnson had lost his majority. Hardly an auspicious start. But even if he did keep that majority, the EU has only stood firm on one thing, that it wasn't going to break up the common market if the threat was that the UK was leaving. In golf club terms, it's basically saying they're not going to let the UK play golf there and use the facilities and not pay anything for the benefits that they get from it. A concept frequently described to children as you cannot both have your cake and eat it. In many ways, it's just kind of funny. Britain, in an attempt to bring back the former glory of Britain, has all but paralysed itself with over 3 years of negotiation about almost nothing other than Brexit. But even if it gets through by some miracle, that would just be the start. Because now you would be completely reliant on these people who couldn't even get, not even over the first fence of the Brexit negotiations, they couldn't even get out of the starting gate. They're the ones that you're now going to be relying on to make Britain great again on the world stage. I mean, as I've said multiple times before, the EU has myriad problems, some of them just as dumb as Brexit, like, unifying the currency without unifying the fiscal policy. But the UK's solution to all of this seems to be to cut off one of its legs as a negotiating strategy. And I'm not so sure there's going to be a happy ending to that one. So what happens next? I genuinely have no idea. I mean, I think the immediate first step is going to be fairly simple. Said that before. The Parliament is going to stop Boris from getting a no deal. Okay, that means that all of Johnson's promises about, out by October, do or die, yada, 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 nah, they're gone. So that makes his position kind of farcical. It was farcical to begin with anyway, majority of one, then majority of zero. But what now? An election? God knows what's going to happen there. Does the EU just sort of say, we've had enough, no more extensions, in which case, well, what actually happens to the UK then? They're basically kicked out of the EU. I don't think that's terribly likely, if for no other reason than the EU probably don't want to appear as the boogeyman here. And seeing as this will probably completely screw over the UK, they don't want to be seen as the people who ended up doing that. So, even if Johnson had gotten through with his plans to stall Parliament such that it was no deal by default just because he ran out the clock, my guess would be the EU would have offered an extension anyway, because when the hurt of the no deal kicks in, they don't want to be the ones taking the blame. So, if they've offered an extension and the UK says, no, we don't want the extension, then you can't really blame the EU for it because they offered you the extension. But what now? I have no idea. So leave some interesting and exciting fan speculation about what's next in the game of Brexit.